Hi, Fextinol. How are you? Hello, Ms. Marilyn. I'm fine. My brothers are sort of wanting me to come back to Minneapolis to sell the family house, which I don't really want to do. But they seem to be on that sort of warpath. I'm good. Glad that the day is better. It's 7 o'clock is when Sally and Russell and I will do our drawing thing. It got postponed till then, so I'm just trying out some pens I fixed. See if I can bring a smile to my face. Be right back. Oh, I just put sacks in some various pens that were sackless. One of these big Schaefer Triumph nib pens. Skyline or two. Again, nothing that anyone need get excited about. I finally fixed a pen that was in my collection, and I took it out for some reason, and I saw that it didn't have a sack. And it's a 456. Or is it a 455? Maybe it's a 455. $4.55. You need some big Triumph nibs, huh? The nibs or the whole goddamn pen? $4.55. This is a pen in my collection that I haven't used in a while because the sack wasn't there. The whole goddamn pen, I see. Well, it's easier to sell you one of those than it is to sell you the nib. Look at this yellow end on this little eagle. Little wood grain eagle has a yellow stripe here and a yellow end. I don't think you're going to find a Triumph nib worth your time, Marilyn. I mean, they're fine and everything, but I don't think, they don't have a nib that I think would make you happy. But I'm happy to sell you one. Happy to sell all sorts of them. Okay, what is this pen? This is a Gold Bond. Gold Bond, Gold Bond. Here's a Triumph, a Skyline nib with a nice flexible rubbery nib that I like for sketching. Here's another yummy Skyline nib. It's almost boingy boingy. Anyway, here's that Triumph nib that I finally unscrewed. It's one of these ones, the lever has no relationship to the way the nib turns out. This one, the screw makes the lever on the bottom. Hate when that happens. Slumming it. Does anyone want to join me?
Have no fear. Effect
You're
all
here.
is here.
Oh, well, I will not fear. I my brothers are, I think my elder of my two younger brothers has decided, I think, that he does want to sell the house that we all grew up in. And initially, there was a thought that maybe he and his girlfriend and I would buy my little brother out of it. But I think their plan is now to sell it because of a pipe that burst and flooded the basement. And it's just bringing to mind the upkeep and stuff. So I think that's what's happening. So my mind is going in that direction.
Well, that's understandable. I was curious because you seemed unusually. I don't know if bummed out's necessarily the right word, but
Yeah. Well, it's a number of things, but that was sort of part of it.
right. Well, I'm sure there's, you know, lots of memories, both good
Mhm.
and bad, sentimental things, just a
Yeah.
lot of stuff wrapped up in that whole thought process.
I can't buy if you wanted to sell me a wherever, Frederick, I couldn't buy half of it, let alone. Um, I could move here to Minneapolis, but I really like this community that I live in, so it's it's not it's more than in Minneapolis you have to have a car, you have to drive to people's houses, you have to make plans. Here I can just walk to the other building and
Right.
sit on the couch and talk to people I've run into 3 or 4 people I've known for 35 years.
Well, yeah,
So it's hard
I
for me
think
to
where you're at right
give that up.
now probably feels way more like home to you now than
Yeah.
going back to Minneapolis ever would.
Well, I always referred to Minneapolis as home, and this was my treehouse.
Yeah.
So my treehouse is more fun than the house. Your home when you were a kid. It was always more fun to play in the treehouse than to, you know,
No, it
go
makes perfect sense.
So, but you know, it's been fun for the last 30 years of living here, 35 years of living here, that I could always go back to Minneapolis and be in the house that I grew up in. But it was sort of strange when the day after my father died, I looked at this house, and even though technically it was more mine on that day than it was the day before when he was alive, it seemed less, it seemed missing. Of course, it was missing my father, but it just,
Right.
some magic sort of had disappeared. But it's an absolutely wonderful house, and we do have a lake cabin, we call it, but it's a house essentially that we initially had intended to keep. This was part of my parents' plan, is that we would keep the lake house when they go. But in the 10 years or so that after my mother died, going up to the lake was more of a trauma than it used to be. Traffic was worse, and
Yeah.
people had jobs, and all that kind of stuff made going to the lake seem less.
It was more of a pain in the butt than an actual recreational.
Yeah, and my brother, we love we love the lake and going on sailboats and stuff, but we do that in Minneapolis in a much more sailboat friendly, social kind of lake on Lake Minnetonka, where my brother races with people every weekend, twice a week. So in a way, Gull Lake also seems very distant in a way. So, anywhom,
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I
That's
just saw in the chat there, Russell says, "Hey, you want to draw early?" And then he's asking, "Is this a bad time?"
It's not a bad time. We can draw now. What I wanted to do, affects Null and anyone else. If Sally wants to draw now, we can draw now. It was just going to be the three of us drawing. People can watch as, oh, Sally is here.
Well, I can't draw, so I have nothing to
So
contribute.
you're out of the running, but you can participate. What I want to do, Sally, why don't Effects Null, why don't you sign off shortly? What I
Okay.
want to do is get Sally and Russell on here just to make sure their cameras are working and aiming where we want them to aim. And then I'll stop this stream and start a new one. No, we're not. If more people are in the room, our drawings get smaller, Sally. So, but I
I'll
thought
still be in the chat room. Don't worry, I'm not going.
they'll be jeering and cheering and throwing tomatoes and clapping from the peanut gallery. So here's Russell. So, but I want to make sure. I mean, what I'd like to do anyway, Russell and Sally, is to start up with just the three of us all ready to go. Russell, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. You still don't have a webcam. Well, stick your tongue out at me, won't you, Sally? I tell you what, you can type. Effects Null will be your hand, and he'll play the role of you. You'll draw.
Interpretive dance.
No. So what we did before was fine, Sally. How we did it before was fine. Did you use your phone or what? So, how are you doing, Russell? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm just really tired right now.
Oh, I see that Hamburglar behind you.
Yeah, you do. I'm trying to get something out, but
Hello, Sally.
Hello.
This is Mitch, aka Effects Null.
Hello.
And Sally and Russell and I are going to be drawing together. And what I thought we could do, are you all ready to go? Effects Null, I'm going to ask you to leave just to see how the three cameras work.
No problem.
Will you chat from the sidelines here?
Yes, I'll be shouting from the balconies.
Okay, good. Bye. Okay, good. I just wasn't sure if these were going to be seen as vertical or not. So if the three of us can aim down in some way, shape, or form and pay attention to what you see on your stream, then we can make sure that we all can see where our drawing is and where our hands are and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Russell, does that make sense with you?
Yep.
Except, are you going to be drawing on the wall there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
I'm sure it's fine. It's up to you and Sally. You're the bosses. So
Yeah, I was just planning on staying on for like 20 minutes because I'm completely out of it right now.
20 minutes is fine. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Do you want me to start over completely new on a new stream with the three of us?
I don't know that that's necessary.
Okay. Well, then let's just start in right now. Okay, you guys, what are you thinking?
Well, I was kind of wondering how the writing meeting went.
It basically went. Well, I planned to do a lot of writing on Friday, and I just stared at my screen, and not much happened. So that's sort of how it went.
You
I
might
sort of
need
lost
to
a lot of
explain-
energy later in the week.
Yeah,
Um,
that way too.
so, Sally, you're using an old pencil, and Russell's using a magic marker. It looks like. I don't know what are you using, Russell?
My special marker right here.
Your special marker, and I'm using this. So let me see if I can make this work. I was telling people in the group. I think I'm going to do this. Yeah, this is what I need to do. I asked people to look at your drawings, Sally, so they have a sense of what you do and how you're similar to Russell and I in terms of some things. But anyway, I don't know what I'm going to draw. I thought you guys would have had a thought in mind, but maybe.
Oh, I almost never have a thought in my mind.
God damn you, Russell.
I've had no thoughts lately.
You're in a philosophy grad doctoral program, dear.
Yes, I am.
You can't have no thoughts. That's not possible.
I have some thoughts that lead to dead ends.
Well,
That's where it's going lately.
I was describing to them the things we drew last time, the quails having their thought experiments, and
were you able to ever figure out what my drawing was supposed to be showing?
I think it was trying to show that each of these quails. Well, I don't know if all of the quails were all thinking to the degree that one of them was, but one had his little thought bubble of what the other ones were thinking or understanding about their situation, and then, but I don't know if that was at all right.
Well, what I realized later was that what I was drawing is actually not the problem itself, just the setup to the problem. So It was why does there have to be somebody who comes in and says there's at least one muddy quail? So why wouldn't that be common knowledge at first?
I see. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. And I didn't know the answer to the simpler question, I guess. So I'm Russell drawing the Hamburglar. Here's his arms. This was his head at one point.
So the actual problem in the muddy-faced quails was not the fact that was not the idea that they each had to generate in their own mind a vision of the world with one muddy-faced quail, but the fact that somebody had to put that idea in their mind. Is that the problem? Or why should there be somebody that has to put that idea in their mind?
Yeah, well, it's more of why is it that they don't all know? So if we were the quails, so let's suppose that I'm trying to think about what you see, Russell, and I'm trying to get in your head. So we each have mud on our foreheads. I don't know that I have mud, so I'm imagining things from your perspective. But since I'm getting in your head, I don't know anything about myself. So now I'm imagining that you don't know what you have on your head, and I don't know what I have in my head. And now you're trying to imagine what Pierre sees, and he doesn't know he has mud. And at this point, we haven't established that either you, Russell, or myself have mud. So then at that point, once you jump twice, then you can't assume that everybody knows that at least one quail has mud on their foreheads.
Do these quail have the power of vision?
They do.
Well, I think
Then they would.
I think
they
the
would
idea
know.
is that maybe
So
they don't have the concept of what it is to be muddy faced.
So they do have that, and they do all know that at least one. Sorry, they all know that at least one quail has mud on their foreheads, and they all know that at least one quail has mud on their foreheads. But they don't all know that they all know that they all know that at least one quail has mud on their foreheads.
But every quail can see mud on two foreheads. right?
Correct. Yes.
So their knowing or not knowing the one quail thing seems not important. Once they realize that two of the three of them at least have a muddy forehead, right? Why do we even bother with one, wanting to know whether one is muddy?
Well, they also want to just have a complete account of what everybody else knows.
I see. Okay.
Because later on in the problem, they're going to just try to use what they know about what the others know in order to, for the smartest quail, to figure out from the fact that, like in the first round, the goose will ask, "Oh, do you know if your forehead is muddy?" And everyone answers no. And then the smartest quail will know from that they have mud on their foreheads after everyone answers the first time.
And the first question is what?
The first question is, do you know that you have mud on your forehead? Or do you know whether you have mud on your forehead? And then they'll
Right.
only answer if they actually are correct, because they're perfect.
Well,
But maybe, yeah. I was just wondering if the diagram could show that. But
I think the diagram showed something to that effect. I think your diagram explaining that problem is clear as the drawing I'm doing right now of your quails and Russell's hands and the Hamburglar. So, so for the people that are in the room that know Russell and I very well,
oh yeah, I can't see the comments.
would you like to introduce yourself in whatever way you want, Sally?
What would I say?
You don't have to type; just talk. They can.
Oh yeah, but I just wish I could see the comments. But
Oh,
I
the
guess,
comment. Well,
how do you normally do that? Do you have YouTube open at the same time?
no, you don't need to do that. I think you should. I don't know actually, but
There's
Oh, wait,
a
no,
blue
now I see.
balloon
I
down
will read.
there.
I will read what Effextinel said. Pierre
Oh, I
was
see,
trying to
there's-
explain the quail thought experiment to us, and I was utterly lost. But this is
Does the
making more
Hamburglar
sense
use
now.
quail eggs to make egg
This
McMuffins?
is making more sense to me now with the explanations. And Frederick suggests, with tongue-in-cheek, flock mentality.
Yeah, I do see it now. I just had to go out at full
Oh, okay.
screen. And
And then Frederick wants to know, does the Hamburglar use quail eggs to make egg McMuffins?
Ah,
oh,
And-
that's a good question. Well, I mean,
Only you
the
can answer
only
that.
thing I'm really interested more in this quail problem because I'm not certain. I'm not certain I entirely understand it, and yet.
Well, the funny thing is just that like you
No
think
one
that
else
you'd be
does
able to
either.
just think this out and think it through clearly in your head, but like without the formalism, it's just really hard to do, or even to know that you are
Okay.
thinking about it clearly.
So there's
But I
like
could
a
always pass
whole
that
like
along.
set of things that I'm missing in my head right now.
Possibly.
I don't think you're missing anything in your head. I think the problem is one of logic, and you have that ability. I don't really have that, but I understood that from the picture what was going on. I don't know whether I could understand what they actually were thinking. I just saw that they were thinking about what the other quails were thinking. I could see how that was. I don't know how did you differentiate one quail from another? Like how in those thought bubbles did I know that quail A was thinking about quail B and C
Right.
rather
I
than
think they should have little numbers on them.
their brother-in-law, who he forgot was his birthday or something.
I think those should have numbers, but they are
And they might have numbers. I know that
unless one is more intelligent than another, they're all indistinguishable.
They're all.
So Leibniz would be.
I think.
Leibniz wouldn't like it.
Okay. Covey of quails, coven of witches. Is that a coincidence? Asks Frederick. So
I can't say, thinking about it, that the Hamburglar would use quail eggs to make Egg McMuffins, because I don't think he makes Egg McMuffins at all. In fact, I mean, he is the Hamburglar. He cannot do anything. He cannot subsist on anything except his ill-earned gains, right? He is physically, and he is like the alienated working class, essentially. Everything he needs, he has the inability to produce by his own hand, and so he has to rely on a larger structure to produce these things in order to enact the fiction of his stealing these things.
I'll take your word for it, Russell. What if the quails are gathered on a porn set with a mirrored ceiling and a wall? That's how they're aware of the mud. How does that work with the thought experiment?
I think I actually have a drawing up with a bunch of mirrors. I don't know that it was pornographic. I think there was just one quail mirrored many times.
There was one quail admiring
one quail enjoying himself.
Him or herself in the mirror. Well, that was a very interesting thought experiment. I'm going to get another color of Tombow marker, dried out Tombow marker.
What did you say you were writing on?
Oh, Kripkenstein, which is so there's. Have you heard of the rule following paradox at all?
No, I haven't.
It's one of the questions that comes up is, so what, in virtue of what fact about ourselves do we mean what we normally mean by addition? So it's kind of a skeptical paradox, and you're asking, how do you know that you're doing addition rather than quaddition? And it's sort of stated about the past, because if you put it in the present, then you have to presuppose that your listener knows what addition is. But so you're imagining your past self doing addition, and you're wondering what fact about them that can be stated in just pure naturalistic terms says that you're doing addition rather than quaddition, whereas like over the number 3,000,004, say, then you're supposed to answer 5 no matter what the question is. So that's kind of like why I do, like, I have all these quail puns, and it has the letter Q, which is just funny because philosophers like to add Q to things. So there's quaddition requests for plus. And I'm sure there are others too. I don't know why they use the letter Q so much, but I like it.
You're asking. They're asking in the what kind of pencil
yes,
you're using? Blackwing.
Let's see if that shows. Yes.
And then the other one was someone likes the way you think.
Well, it makes one person because I'm not a fan of it lately.
Too. It's just that, like, unfortunately, mathematics was never my strong suit in school.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's mine either. But
yeah, I guess it's such a foreign type of philosophy to what I was exposed to as an art student that it's like that I'm coming into this and seeing it, and my mind is boggled by it, I have to say, because
I think
most of the
stuff.
You should. Please do, because I'd be interested in reading it.
What were you about to say about the stuff you saw? That you've
I mean,
covered?
most of the stuff I dealt with like dealt with issues of like ethics, identity, and the structures of government and things like this. These the problems you're dealing with are problems of logic themselves, which is absolutely fascinating to me.
Definitely not representative of the whole department here, but yeah, for me. Well, I was doing cognitive science in undergrad, and then I ended up switching because I took a course on the history of gravitation research, where the question that was sort of structuring the whole thing is, what does it mean to have high quality evidence in the sciences? And what does science look like at its best? And so I took that and we just went through all these details. And then I looked back at cognitive science and then had an existential crisis and then switched. So.
Because you didn't feel like you could justify what you were doing in cognitive science if you couldn't produce what you learned or decided was quality or true scientific evidence.
I just felt like I hadn't answered the question, what it means to have extremely high quality evidence. And I don't know, being self-indulgent, I guess, and going down rabbit holes.
No, I think that's a really noble goal. You realize, wait, I still don't understand why I don't have high quality evidence yet. So I'm just going to stop until I can figure out why, and then I'm going to continue on with this other thing. I mean,
but did she do that?
If I had figured it out, that would be one thing.
Yeah, she didn't do that. She decided to switch majors.
I'm
not going to have any of those.
I'm just like this sad little quail here, disappointed.
Little sad quail.
I can't answer my questions.
Answer my question. I want to know, do I have a muddy face?
I'm going to add a muddy forehead to this one.
Your drawings are so ethereal and they're just so magnificent, Sally.
Well, thank you.
Miss, I've never taken an art class in my life, Sally.
I've drawn for a bit, but yeah, I think I'm just kind of impatient too.
To what?
I mean, partly like if I work on something, it won't be something that takes me more than like an hour or two to finish.
No, I mean you're drawing.
So I'm very.
I mean, what you choose to draw and how you draw it never ceases to. Like, why did you decide to draw the frames? Frames.
Why did I start that?
And I was attracted to doing that too when I was at the museum. You know, looking at the. But why did you do that?
I'm not sure why I actually started. Maybe, I mean, I think I like drawing the columns and around the buildings around here, and maybe that came before the frames, but I'm not sure.
Well, the frames were, it seemed like you were fascinated by the curlicue, plaster volutes and old bric-a-brac. And you did name a couple of them, or I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, for those, I had to just go and look up pictures of antique frames.
Guys, I'm going to get going now. Because
no. You can't.
I am dead, and I have also people from work texting me at 6:30 in the evening, so.
Well, we can chat for a little bit longer, Sally, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's okay. I see your columns now. And I'm just looking at your frames. Frankenstein's mirror.
Oh, bye, Russell.
Oh, he's gone. He's gone. English carved frame. Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
so you're back to. We can draw a little bit if you don't mind, or talk.
For sure.
I'm not nearly as bright as dear Russell is about, or have a understanding of philosophy, but we can talk about drawing, the art of drawing, or the act of drawing, and moving pencils around and things like that if you want.
Sure.
Or we could let people ask us questions.
But that also works. I can't see how many people are. I mean, I know that a lot of people will watch later, I guess.
Well, not
But
many
I've looked at
people.
some of the videos.
Yeah, not many people do watch these live ones later because I don't often keep them up because we end up, babbling on for too long about things that sometimes they get to be rather personal. So I just take them off. They're fun for the viewers present, but I don't know if they're going to be good for later. One of the games that I play with my viewers lately, I have this old guest book that recorded people that stopped at this house in Florence from 1902 to 1956. And it got me to thinking about if you, Sally, had the ability to invite to a dinner party 6 or 8 people total, including yourself, who would they be? And they could be people that are living or dead. You don't have to worry about them understanding each other's language. They'll all understand one for conversation. Who would those people be? If
You'll have to give me a minute.
that's okay. Well, think about it because it sort of was fun to see what people came up with. And I didn't really ask why they came up with them, but some people gave me the reasons why. And like Miss Marilyn wanted to invite a couple people. She wanted to hug some of the people and punch other people in the nose. And I was among the people she wanted to hug. I was one of the guests. And but she wanted to punch Marilyn Monroe in the nose for killing herself. So, but she was invited first to
I
dinner.
feel like you'd hug her first and then punch her and then
Well,
hug
I
her.
don't know if she was going to even bother to hug her, but she was going to share dinner with her. And Russell had Cervantes and a couple of other people that were kind of logical in my knowledge of him. I haven't decided who I want to invite, but it's really been interesting as a little thought game. So
Well, I think I'd have to throw in, I don't know about 6 or 8 people, but I'd probably throw in
I'm
Amélie du Châtelet, Mary Somerville, who was the first person to be called a scientist, even though it was an insult.
let me write these down because so far you've mentioned 2 people that I don't know. So Sally is inviting who?
Margaret Cavendish.
Margaret Cavendish. And who is that?
She was a natural philosopher who she wasn't as well connected as other people. So she would kind of just make up people to write letters to. So normally you'd have correspondences and you could read those, but she kind of just made up people and talked to herself. And she had a book that I haven't read yet. I just came across her work this term of going around and doing natural philosophy on an island with a bunch of animals. So there were birds doing, I'll have to look up what it was. It was like the birds were doing like studying the earth or something. I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
But I said her, Mary Somerville.
And who's she?
She was the first person to be called a scientist with that word.
Okay.
Um,
And you said it
and-
was an insult. You said she.
Most
She-
of an
she-
insult in this because she didn't do experiments herself, but she wrote very extensively about science for a popular audience
Okay.
in the 19th century. And I would add also Amélie du Châtelet,
Amelie, A-M-E-M-I-L-E,
with an E, L-I-E. Yeah. Yeah.
G. Châtelet. I'm sorry.
Du, so like D-U,
Yeah.
and then C-H-A-T.
Yeah.
E-L-E-T.
And
And
another
a little
scientist-
hat on the A.
A little hat on the A. Well, of course, a chapeau on the A. So she's another scientist or philosopher.
Yeah, so and I mean I don't want to introduce her this way, but it's maybe the easiest way is that she was Voltaire's lover.
Okay.
And she translated the Principia,
Okay.
Newton's Principia.
Okay. But she knew other things other than translation and Voltaire.
Yeah, the
Right.
translation was more than there was commentary too.
Okay. Okay. So far, it's
Other
a
than
pretty,
those, I
pretty
don't know.
heavy table. It's going to be. You're not going to invite a comic along or anyone to lighten it up. I
I
like.
think Cavendish was pretty funny.
Okay. Cool. So you got 4 people. You could play bridge. Or anyone else?
Are we combining like this into one dinner party, or is it
One dinner
just
party, yeah.
everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Like, does
think
Marilyn Monroe get to be here?
I think about the idea of like one person invited Mrs. Melania Trump and Mrs. Clinton
Mhm.
and Stormy Daniels and Monica Lewinsky just to watch the fight, you know?
Mhm.
So I think of it as being, you know, how are these people going to interact with each other too? So everyone seems to be, based on what you said, they all
I think they would get along. I don't
they'd
think
get
there'd be
along,
any,
yeah, and they
fist fighting.
yeah, okay, cool. Well, you don't have to answer anymore now, but you can.
Yeah, I don't think I know any more yet, but
Okay.
maybe it'll.
Well, you've got room for.
Are you going to draw them like a dinner party at some point?
You can. I drew the generic dinner party here just to go along with the. Whoops, it's upside down. Just to go along with the book here. So you know they're obviously not individuals, but generic people. Whoops. I'm up to the ground. Well, just think about what you might want to do there. One of your quails here looks like it's a sunny side up egg. Maybe I'll draw another. Yeah, 3 sunny side. Which quail will be served for breakfast? Or are they all going to be made into an omelet? I'm sorry for
Poor quails.
killing your quails. So when you draw, though, I think I might have asked you this before. Sometimes, like when I'm doing these kind of doodles that are where I just look at a page and I start filling it up, I don't really have any clue as to what it's going to turn into, but your drawings seem to have a logic to them that implies there might be a story or a plan.
I think some of the recent ones have a bit more of a plan, and I think that's mostly because I'll come up with the idea, but I won't be able to draw it at the moment. But I think most of the time my head is just very blank, and there are no thoughts going on, and I'm just enjoying scratching the paper up.
Yeah. And you,
Maybe I'll see it after the fact that I
Yeah.
like little stories and build off that. But
in the photographs you take where you zoom in and light a piece of feather or fluff
oh
or
yeah, and I just got these little.
oh,
I think
light,
like one of them's like 10 times, one of them's 14 times.
and they go in your camera.
I forced them to go on my phone, even though it's super old and there's not much room anymore. But
Uh,
I'll try to take pictures through those.
yeah, I mean they're really interesting how you make something so small look so big and so essentially flat
Mhm.
looks so vast. Something with the closest thing in the picture and the furthest thing in the picture are maybe 3 inches apart, but it almost looks like they're across the ocean in distance because of the atmosphere that you
Little world.
put into these things and the point of view and the sort of fact that we don't really know really what we're looking at,
Hmm.
or we might not know why we're looking at it. Okay, it's a feather, and then you think about it. Well, why is it this much of a feather? Why not the whole thing? Why did she have the light bulb resting
Hmm.
1 millimeter off the surface so that the smooth piece of paper looks like it's the surface of Mars? All these little bumps. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's what's really fun about your pictures is there's a scale play with them that just makes you focus your eyes in your head. You sort of have to think. It's not like you're dizzy or have vertigo or anything, but it's like you have to rethink where you are.
Yeah.
You're not just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
because
No, I'm
you-
smiling. I guess you can't see my face.
You what? You're not saying that to be polite.
I'm smiling and looking around at the objects again.
Okay. But, it's,
And a lot of it's, I mean, I'm quarantined now and I'm
Okay.
just in a studio by myself and I sit in the same chair and I just stare at the same things on my desk every day.
uh-huh.
And then I just, look a little bit more each day at the same thing.
Well, I do the same thing with a lot of the drawings. I sit on the couch and I turn on YouTube video and I listen to a radio program or something. And I draw the same view in front of me over and over and over again. And it's just, it's this, if you can imagine a universe where rather than decorating a Christmas tree at Christmas time, you decorate a ophthalmological X-ray stand with all sorts of silver and black rubber and steel things. If you can imagine that universe, that's sort of what I have in front of me. Is this gob of, I think there's pictures of it on my,
I think I've seen that. Let me.
and it's just, there's molecular models and there's little silver chains and there's a black
So
ukulele.
where do you get all this stuff from? Just from antique stores or
I get it
just like
30 years of collecting stuff and finding things in the trash and getting things from my neighbors. That
and you've lived in the same place for a long time, I'm guessing?
I've lived
to
in
be
the
able-
same place for a long time, so it's just fun to sort of put these things together in the way that I am, because it is kind of like decorating a Christmas tree. And then I get to draw them, and I do these very realistic drawings of this gob of stuff, and to me it looks very realistic. But someone looking at the drawing I did would think, what was he on? You know, and that's sort of like what your drawings are like with me. Is, you know, I get lost in the space without really thinking about what, you know, is the artist trying to tell me something about featherness? Am I supposed to know something more about feather-ishness now, having looked at this, or is it just a delight in this stuff I'm seeing? And I don't know the answer to that.
Maybe a bit of both. The feather thing, I mean, I guess I'm not really supposed to collect those. That's
Oh, they're illegal feathers to collect.
you aren't supposed to collect feathers from native birds, I guess, except for certain species. It's against the Migratory Bird Act, but I think I have around 1,000 now.
I think a feather isn't going to help the migration one iota. Unless you don't come up to a bird and pluck it from their white feathers, I don't think they're needing it, you know, for their trip.
Yeah, I mean, this is just fallout from people selling rare feathers. You know, I guess.
No, I am
building fly ties out of them, things like that.
Making fancy hats for women to walk up and down Park Avenue back in the day when you could do that sort of thing, because they didn't invent the internet yet. So, oh dear. Does anyone have any questions from our resident philosopher and quail lover and feather thief?
That's actually a book I just read is called The Feather Thief.
Oh, okay.
That my mom gave me. But, yeah, I've spent too much time learning about birds, I think, rather than writing papers. But
I think in the long run, you're better off with feathers and photos of feathers, and anyone can write a paper about philosophy, right?
Yeah, you don't need a degree for that.
You don't need a degree for that. But you need
who would spend 6 years doing that? I don't know.
No,
waste of time.
But it's 6 years for you to do this, to get this degree.
Officially 5, but it'll probably take 6. Some people here are taking 8, 10.
Well, it's because they.
But...
Anyway, it's funny. So at the end of the day, let's say you have Sally blank. I'm not going to say your last name because the feather police are watching it. Sally blank, PhD, doctorate in philosophy. What is that going to get you in the real world? Once you leave your ivory tower, this is maybe why those people are taking 8 years to get their degree, because
that's honestly probably that's true for a lot of people. The job market is terrible.
I mean,
worse now.
Let's say the job market was absolutely great for philosophers.
People, their dream is just to stay in academia, especially if they can get a tenure job and you can write about what you want to write about and you're not forced to publish papers, then it's absolutely great. That would be the dream. It's just that most people can't get that now.
So, but let's say...
But I also don't know if academia will suit me.
Now, I was just wondering if academia I mean, I realize that that's the best place for many people to be
Mhm.
in their field, but some engineers want to build bridges, and some
Yeah.
artists want to paint pictures, and
Yeah.
but I don't know what philosophers do in
When they don't go into academia.
when they don't go into academia. What are their
Yeah. I mean, the
penny?
sometimes now they're, for people who are undergrads or masters, they'll have. We had a talk, and people came in to talk about what they did when they didn't do philosophy, and it all ended up being, oh yeah, I do like software development now because I also took computer science courses as I was
I
learning
see.
philosophy. So you sit there, okay, well, thanks. I mean, I think it's just that you have to be very creative and you have to find problems. I mean, the thing is that you're supposed to have skills that you can sort of approach a problem and break it down reasonably quickly, because you have these sorts of general skills. So I'm sure someone who's creative could kind of come up with a career, but I don't know that. Philosophy of science is a little easier, I think, for doing interdisciplinary stuff. Depends on the area, I'd say. But I'll just live in a box.
Okay.
That's my plan.
Will it be a nice box? What kind of box are you going to live in?
like double thickness, 2 cardboard boxes.
Luxurious. You're going to have a double wide, a double thick mobile. Okay. Well, as long as you can draw and have an Instagram account where we can see these, or that I can see, I'm being very selfish here. I want to be able to continue to see what you're doing.
Yeah, I do feel it's hard to fit in time for everything lately.
So what do I call this masterpiece? Who knows? Hamburglar and
quail eggs.
And quail egg.
Mixed up.
And 2 arms. Well, think about other people for your dinner party, if you'd like, Sally. Oops, I'm upside down again. There we go. I wish Russell wasn't turning into a pumpkin so soon, but well,
it was my fault because we scheduled it for earlier, but then I realized because I came back to California from the East Coast, but I decided to stay on East Coast time, so my phone's still East Coast because that way everything's in the afternoon.
You're just screwy. You might as well enjoy that box you're living in because it's not gonna function in the real world.
Oh no!
I'll just live on Eastern time because
my classes are in the afternoon. It's great.
So how do you have all of your students also on Eastern time? Is that part of the
Oh, it's just me. Experiment? I mean, I convert. I mean, everything's on Zoom now, so you have students all over the world. Everyone just announces where they are. So why not just have my own time zone?
I see. Okay. Well, anyway, it's always fun to hear you and to watch you draw and
spout nonsense.
And to talk with Russell and to talk nonsense and to talk other stuff. But I'm going to probably try to call my brothers because they're keen on getting me to come back to Minneapolis to help sort out my father's estate. And the broken pipes in the family house that caused a flood in the basement, making my brothers more eager now than they were last week. So
Mhm.
our original plan had been that maybe my elder brother and I would buy my little brother out of the house that we all grew up in. And Todd and his girlfriend and I would maybe live there some of the time. I mean, they'd live there all the time, but it would be a home away from home for me. Continue to be my house that it has been for 64 years. But they may just decide it's time to sell and take the money and run. And so that might be a plan. But anyway, will you be good on whatever time zone you're on, whatever cardboard box is your mailing address? You and your quail have fun, and we'll do this again, I hope, sometime when Russell is not
Yeah, that would be nice.
falling asleep. Okay. Well, you be good.
Alrighty.
See you
Take
later.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm going to give my brothers a call and just find out what they're up with. So I may be back. I may not be back. We will see. Talk to you all later. Whoops, I have to end the broadcast.